I'm Van Sebastian here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge Season 9, Episode 15 interview. We'll be talking with Wendy Whitman and discussing her latest book. So, let's get to know our guest. Wendy Whitman has a unique background through her decades-long work as an executive and producer for Court TV and HLN, covering almost every major high-profile murder case in America. Though her knowledge of the most detailed aspects of the crimes, Ms. Whitman has become an expert on the subject of murder in America. Before attending Boston University School of Law, Whitman worked for comedians Lily Tomlin and George Carlin. After graduating from law school, the author embarked on what turned out to be a 20-year career in television covering crime. Wendy, welcome back to the show.
Nice to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure to have you back.
And we just had a little earthquake in Connecticut, so I felt like I was living back in LA. So that was like karma. I think that was like the something was doing something.
The gods and the stars were aligning.
The gods all aligned.
So
Vans and Bears were showing up. We have to have an earthquake.
Right.
Well, I live in Wisconsin, so whenever we have a tremble, it's because the Earth is responding to the glaciers not being here anymore.
Oh, that's interesting. We don't have glaciers in Connecticut, so I don't know what caused that.
Weird. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I know folks have an opportunity to go listen to your previous interviews, but I want to ask what you've been up to since last summer.
Well, the first book was Premonition, my first crime thriller, my debut crime thriller, and I did the sequel, came out last July. And it picks up exactly where the first book left off. And I've gotten very good feedback on it. Everyone who read the first book really loves the way the story is progressing. So I'm very happy with the way it came out.
So for folks who are new to the series, you follow both the heroine and the serial killer, right?
Yeah. So the second book, I don't want to give away the ending of the first book, but it picks up from that. And the second book focuses on learning a lot more about the killer, who I grew to really enjoy writing him because he was so evil and awful, but it was interesting to write him. And so one of the detectives, I don't want to give away too much of the plot because it'll ruin the first book, but sort of a little team goes after him. And there's a backstory that develops as well, and a few new characters that get added. I like the way I ended it. I like the way I developed his personality and what motivates him. And I like the way the whole backstory sort of tied everything together from the first book to this book.
Nice. So I know you have a history of studying crime in America. There's a long stretch from that, though, to getting into the mind of a killer. How did you put yourself there to focus on book two?
I think, from working at Court TV and Nancy Grace's show for 20 years, we've covered so many people, whether they were serial killers or just one-off murderers or one-off caught murderers. We always assumed they killed other people no one knew about unless they confess. I think you just get a feel, I guess it's just like an emotional feel of what motivates these people and why they do it. I think, it ranges from being a sociopath, a psychopath, narcissistic, and then all other kinds of mental problems, obviously, but a lot of them are just pure evil. And I think I made my killer very, very smart and rational, but just evil. And he did have a twisted motivation, but nothing to do what he did, nothing that would justify what he ended up doing in the book and in the story.
Right. So Premonition is primarily from the heroine's point of view, correct?
Yes. And the second book's from the killer's point of view.
Nice. So
yeah, it worked well.
You get to unpeel the onion skin that way.
Yeah. And I made it, they're humorous touches too. Like he says a lot of things that are sort of funny. Do you know what I mean? So when he's about to kill someone, he starts to get bored and just wants to get it over with and thinks they're so boring and all. I put a touch of humor. And I've gone friendly with a lot of authors, and there's a big group of women thriller writers in Connecticut. And a lot of them do use touches of humor because the books can get very dark. If you just don't lighten it up a little bit, I don't know how much people can take. I'm used to it from my whole TV career, but a lot of people are a little gun shy.
Well, I mean, one of the most memorable lines in American cinema is Hannibal Lecter's "with fava beans." And again, it's funny.
Stuck.
It is. It's such a dark moment, but it is so funny to have that. And and you're exactly right. You can't keep readers at one emotional level. You have to roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Very,
Exactly.
very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hear the books are also out in audio.
Yes.
Do you want to
There's
crow
an
about that
audible
for a moment?
version for both. Libby McKnight, who's very well known in those stars, voiced both books.
Very
And she
nice.
actually wrote me a really sweet, I was going to use this to answer one of those questions, but she wrote me a very sweet message after she finished voicing the second book saying how much she enjoyed both books. So I never got any feedback from her. And it was just a very effusive, and it was such a validating message of the person who voiced the books. And she's very
Nice.
smart. It was just a really nice vote of confidence from
That's
her.
awesome.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Bez, did you have questions?
No, I thought it was funny first that you went to fava beans for the joke instead of Senator, love your suit. That's my favorite line.
Another one, yes.
But yeah, and I just think that when we write darker themes or darker characters, you have to have the levity, you have to have a little bit of joy or something sprinkled in there, because it's the whole thing for thrillers is that you have to allow it to be. I mean, even Hitchcock, the master of the genre, even though we're talking film there,
Yeah.
it was always, that's why he hired people like Cary Grant or James Stewart, because it was their ability to allow the whole tempo to breathe, and which is what makes thrillers like such a thrill ride, for lack of a better term. So
Yeah.
when you write these, are you thinking, is any part of it in the creative process, is it even thinking down the road of what your narrator will narrate this? Because like now you have two representations of the book. So now do you hear that voice percolating as, oh, I wonder how she'll read this line, or you know what I mean? Because sometimes if the voice actor really nails it, it can inspire you in a different way that maybe you didn't have at the very beginning of the journey.
That's a really interesting question. No one's asked me, which I really like that question. I think the first book, I was just wrapped up in figuring out if I could really write a book and how it was coming out, if I'd get a publisher and all of that. I never even thought about, I knew it was going to have an audio version, but I never thought about it. And as I was writing the second book, because I had listened to parts, I'm not an audible person. Like I need to hold a physical book. I don't even like a Kindle unless I guess if you're traveling, it is convenient if you want to take a few books with you. But I'm very much, you have to pick up a book and read it. But I have a lot of friends who are big on audible books and audio books and all that. So I have to say, when I was writing the second book, having listened to a small portion of Premonition, the audio version, you do start to think, and it's a difficult process because they're voicing men and women and, everything. It is a very unique skill, I think, to be able to do that and do it well, and get the whole book across and keep the reader's attention too, and not be just monotonous and know when to do the inflections and all that. So I was curious to listen to bits of Retribution after she voiced the first book. And as I was writing it, I did think, oh, this would come out really well, verbally and hearing it and all that.
Right. Plus, when you hear it in an audio format, I think as an author, you also have a chance to hear it and feel it on different legs. And you can kind of go, oh, okay, that part is a little slow. Maybe when I do something like that, I need to ratchet it up, or you know what I mean? You can kind of fine tune your craft by hearing it coming back to you. And there's a sense then that you have not touched on while you're writing, because when we write, we're in the zone, but there are signposts that maybe we're not hearing or seeing, and hearing it in a different format can give you that little bit of polish that you just realize the beats and how it occurs in the story, so that's cool. I mean, I'm glad that you have somebody you love so much and that it is turning out to be a great adventure.
Yeah, and also people always ask if you've pictured the book as a movie or a film and all that, and I think almost every author I know does. While they're writing, it helps to visualize it, and I didn't have to force that. As I was writing it, I could picture what each scene would look like if it was turned into, say, a Netflix series or potential actors, whatever. So I think the audio thing is sort of a bit different version of that. You're picturing, listening to it, and that sort of makes you see it as well. So it's all just one big creative process, really, across different mediums, potentially.
Absolutely.
If you get lucky.
Yeah. So, Wendy, did you have anything you want to mention about the series that we didn't think to ask?
Well, just that I wrote the first book. It was sort of therapy, because I had so much built up from 15 years of covering crime, or 15 to 20 years of covering crime, and and I didn't know if I would get it published. It was more just sort of an experiment. And then when I did get it published, I realized the book had to continue, and I knew what I wanted to do with the general story, and I didn't. I wanted to put more of the serial killer in it, and sort of twist the plot a little bit and pick it up from there. So I think I accomplished everything I set out to do. I did. I always mention this in interviews. I did incorporate, even though it's a crime thriller, fictional crime thriller, I did incorporate bits of different true cases that mattered to me throughout the narrative, through the protagonist's point of view, and I think all that worked really well. I think I developed all the side characters really well, and I think there's like basically a foursome of characters that really play well off each other. And I did another a podcast last week, and we were just with two of my friends who we've been doing a lot of events together, who both write crime thrillers, and we were saying how much there are only so many different plots, everyone always says, and so many different stories. And if you're writing a book, at some point doesn't really even matter what the murder is. It's that there has to be a murder if you're writing a crime thriller. And really what it comes down to are the characters and I think the setting. And we all agreed that what makes or breaks a book and gets an audience interested in it or reader interested in it, you have to love the characters or hate the characters, but you have to be invested in the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the setting provides a tremendous amount of the mood of the story and the book. You could set the same thing in something in a steel mining town or something in a deserted part of Alaska. It's going to have a very different feel to it. And I think as you become a writer, book to book, you start to realize what changes a book and what makes it richer or not. And I think those two factors, the characters and the setting, are just critical. The backstory, not so much. Like as I said, you could do a million different types of murders. I think that just is necessary, but a necessary component. But I think it's much more important to develop the characters correctly and to do a cool setting.
Right.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And to have some fun red herrings.
Right.
Yeah.
My favorite joy in reading a crime story is figuring out the red herring before the characters do.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready for our get to know you questions?
I am. I'm all ready.
All right. Well, in this year of diving deeply, what is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Very simple answer: hot chocolate and peanut M&Ms.
Oh, well, there you go.
That'll get you going. That'll get you going. More writing War and Peace.
Right. That's better than a Red Bull. Anyways, what books did you read growing up?
I think growing up, I just read what they had us do in school, which were all the classics, standard books. There was nothing. Looking back on it, I can't really. Nothing stands out to me except that what Ray. I had an English teacher who had us read all the Ray Bradbury books, which was I actually enjoyed that there was sci-fi, which is fun. I'd almost in the back of my mind, I think it might be fun to write a sci-fi murder book at some point, but you have to really, you can't just like wing it. You have to do more investigating into what sci-fi really is. But I think just other than that, Catch from the Rye, all the typical books I think that they made you read in school back then.
Fair enough. Okay, who has been the biggest supporter of your writing?
All my former and current Court TV friends. They were just amazing. The first the first major book event we had in the Mysterious Bookshop in New York for Premonition, it was just a love fest. They were just amazing. So they've been always. We had a very special group of people there, and it was the best kept secret in television, and we really supported each other. So they've been just amazing. And Nancy Grace, I have to give a shout out to Nancy. She's been great.
Well, couldn't avoid that. We needed to get that one out there.
Yeah.
All right. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
No, I'm a night owl. No. I write much better. I do everything better after midnight. I come to life.
I feel
you can't drag me out of bed in the morning, but
yeah, right. At night. Except for an interview.
I don't know. Not another day. Not another day. It takes me 10 hours to get used to it, and then I'm all on fire. All the cylinders are firing.
Right. Okay. What's your favorite hobby outside of writing?
I would say traveling in general. I just got back from Alaska, Seattle, and Miami. That was a bit of a trip, and I've been supportive of different dog organizations, rescue organizations, which I think I mentioned last time. So those are the two things: traveling and dogs.
Excellent. Okay. Has writing and publishing a book changed the way you see yourself?
I think it's changed the way other people see me. I think that everyone says that well, you're a published author, and I don't think, like, to me, it hasn't really changed. The only major change in my life has been the way people react to it. And also I have met a wonderful people like you that have interviewed me, a ton of other writers. Sisters in Crime is a fantastic organization. I've just made so many incredible friends. And thriller writers do like to be around other thriller writers. It gives you ideas. You know, every event I go to, and they mention something, I think, oh yeah, because I focus more on talking about crime a lot when I do interviews and events, but then I'll hear them talk more about the actual craft of writing, because most of them are not in my position where they've covered crime and come from a crime standpoint. They're really writers and they've migrated to this genre. So
Excellent.
that's been a wonderful thing.
All right. Well, if you to write a spin-off about one of your side characters, which one would it be?
People who haven't read the book won't know who it is, but it would be Hank. She's one of the detectives. I think she would be a really good side character.
Excellent.
She
Okay.
sort of becomes one of the main characters, but I think if I had to pick one character to continue alone with, I would pick her.
Yeah,
and I've thought of doing that, just keeping her at some point and changing the whole story.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I loved about writing, is that you discovered that you'll write a side character and you have to keep reminding yourself, wait, they're not the main character. They're not the main, because you just love them so much. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Have you ever traveled as research for your books?
I haven't intentionally traveled, but when I was in Alaska, I was looking around and thinking this wouldn't be a bad setting for, some kind of a murder thing. So I didn't go there to research for that. But sometimes when I go to a place, I'll look around and think the same thing when I was in Tasmania in retrospect, because I was thinking of where to set the next book. And I thought, I remembered certain places there. So I think it's more looking back rather than forward. And I think now that the next book's sort of on my mind, I did look around when I was in Fairbanks and Anchorage and stuff, and thought this might be a cool place to set a book.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially like if you set it within the Native community up there, because then you've got an element that doesn't always get told, especially with the murdering of Native women across the country that still goes on today that people don't know about. So highlighting a community like that can be really, really powerful.
That's a good point.
So. Okay, well, perfect. Well, finally, how do you celebrate when you finish a book?
I eat. I eat. I eat in a relaxed manner, not in a tense manner. Some people eat out of nerves. Like Woody Allen used to have in his movies, once he decided he wasn't going to go to an event, he was all stressed about, then he'd start eating and he'd be so relaxed and happy. That's to me after a book.
There you go. Well, you made
Can't argue with food. Can't argue with food.
Right. I told a lady when I bought a lottery ticket, the lady behind the counter, I said, look, if I win, you and me in a steakhouse. And she goes, a person's got to eat. All right. Take it over, Vance.
All right. Well, congratulations for making it through our list this year. Bravo.
Thanks.
So what's up next for you? I know you're in the middle of promoting Retribution.
Yeah. I did start writing the third book if I turn it into a trilogy. I haven't 100% made that decision yet. I'm leaning towards doing it because I sort of wrote 30 or so pages out of order, just different ideas I had. And I read them over a few weeks ago and I did like the way it was, coming out, and I could take it in so many different directions. So I do have to give some thought to that. And then if and when I finish that, I do have an idea for a nonfiction book that would involve crime. That's I think would be I have a great title for, and I think it would just be a lot of research.
Nice.
But I do think I want to. I think I'll do one more book in this series and then do this nonfiction book. That's what I think is the next.
Yeah, I mean, tap that experience you've earned over your life for sure.
Yeah. All right. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, where is the best place for people to connect with you, follow your updates?
My website, which is wendywhitman.com, I think is the best place. And Instagram at Wendy Whitman Author. That's I post there mostly. Those two places.
Perfect. Any final words of wisdom?
No, just for anyone who's bought the book and read it, I appreciate it. And I think I did create wonderful characters. I think it is a very insightful book because I have so much knowledge of crime and my whole background that I tried to bring into the book, and I think I did bring it in successfully in a lot of different ways. So I feel that people I personally know who've read it really did give me honest feedback and really did appreciate what I was trying to do with the books. And I'm sort of, a big victims' rights person, so I was trying to honor victims as well.
That's awesome. That's a whole other podcast, but that's also very awesome.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Wendy Whitman for coming back and telling us about her books. Wendy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Nice to see you guys.
Our pleasure. We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. So if you enjoy hearing about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. The show was produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye-bye.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.